So what happens in the bodies is there is a claiming of this story. So what it feels is that you're a soul inside the body and that you're conscious, and the thinking and the consciousness sort of merge together, even though they're not really, but it feels like you think that you're alive, where actually everything about you is always changing. Your ideas, your thoughts, your belief system, your age, your body, your feelings, your emotions, all of that is coming and going. So all of that cannot be the experiencer. That is something that's being experienced. That's something that's coming and going in who you are. There's something that's here, that's always here, that's always free, and that's who you are. Like, what is it that's always here? Then what we have is that we have these instruments that are conditioned through thinking. So that's what's really amazing about humans, is that we're constantly evolving and adapting to our environment, and new thoughts and new information changes the directions of these bodies. But we make that a personal thing. We think that it's personal and that we have free will and that we choose to do that. And that's us, that we're choosing our choices, that we want certain things, whereas actually our environment is updating us with ideas, with information, and then the body is processing that, and through that choices appear. And we think that there are choices and that we're making choices and that we're deciding to do things, whereas in actuality they're simply happening. But through the conditioning of this body goes in certain ways. So because you're listening to this talk more than likely is going to influence you in certain ways. It's going to have an effect on you in certain ways, and it will affect your decisions in the future. If you buy into it and if you like it. If you don't like it, then not liking it is rejecting it and not taking it on board. But if you like it, then maybe you'll use it to question what you think, what you believe, and it will have an effect on your body mind. So through investigating this subject, it's going to change your personality structure and what you want, and that is going to change the way you interact with the world. So just in questioning who you are is going to change the way you interact with the world. It's the same with all different things. So your partner, who you're with, the way they influence you, their ideas, their perspective on the world, that is also going to have an influence on you and produce certain outcomes. Also, the way you were brought up, your parents, your social environment, your economic environment, all of this is going to have an influence on you and is going to lead the body in different directions. If you grew up with parents that really encouraged you and really believed in you and taught you, and maybe didn't put you into the mainstream education system, but homeschooled you and gave you a good self-esteem, then more than likely the way that you interact with this world is in positivity. You have more positive emotions, you have more joy, you have more tendency to want to share. And in that, your life is going to look a particular color. More than likely, you'll be drawn to other people with that way of thinking. You'll be drawn maybe to a career that's not about so much about producing money and becoming really rich, but about something that you enjoy and something that you're passionate about. So it's going to have certain effects on you. If you're brought up with the idea that you're a failure, that you're not good enough, that you're bad, then that's going to be an effect on the body, and the body is going to be drawn to situations where it resonates with that. Because if you believe that you're bad, actually the sense of self doesn't discriminate against what it is. So if it's being told that it's bad, even though it's painful, that sense of self wants to keep on emanating that badness. If it's been told it's good, it wants to keep emanating that. The sense of self is indiscriminate about what feelings or what life situation it produces. The sense of self's purpose is to maintain itself. It's not to give you a good life, or it's not to necessarily make you survive well. The sense of self is an animal, you could say, in itself, and its purpose is to survive and to maintain itself. So if it's always been told it's bad, and the sense of self believes it's bad, it will go in that direction. There's other elements that arise in that person, but that's not necessarily the sense of self. Like, that person has a will to survive, and it has desire to eat, and it has desire to have shelter, all these sorts of things, but that's not necessarily the sense of self. Like this illusion, the sense of self, this belief, this unconscious belief that you are someone. So this sense of self keeps trying to maintain itself and goes towards things that it resonates with. So if you believe you're bad, then you go into situations where people tell you you're bad, where people put you down, where you're not treated well. If you believe you're good and you have good self-esteem, then you go in that direction. And that, to me, is law of attraction. And it's completely impersonal. It's not that you create your life. It's less personal than that, because there is no you. It's that life gets created through that illusory you, in a way. So if that illusory you, like, it's on autopilot, and if it believes that it's bad, if it believes that bad things are going to happen to it, it believes it's always going to be poor, then that's what it's going to be drawn to in its life. That's the way what it's going to move towards. If it believes it's good, if it believes everything's going to be great, if it believes it's going to be really successful, then that's what it's going to be drawn towards, is those vibrations. And it's an energetic vibration that comes out of the body. So when somebody feels really good and positive about themselves, you could say vibrationally they have a different feeling. Whereas someone's really bad, low self-esteem, really dark, really depressed, there's a different vibration in that body, and we can feel it as we go near people. And we have particular reactions to people's emotional and energetic body, and it's pre-verbal, it's pre-thought, those reactions. And that's law of attraction. That doesn't mean that it's your desire or your want. So if you take the person that's really positive, their desire is to be successful, is to give, is to enjoy life, and that's what they look for in life. That's what they see. It's other people that are enjoying themselves, other people that want that, and that's what they channel themselves towards. And the person with negative channels its way in that direction. But it's not personal, it's happening. It's something that's happening in the body, and that's not you. Who you are is what is. Who you are is what's always here, and that sense of self is always changing and isn't a permanent thing, and always being updated. And you can actually change that perception of self. When you have an awakening, so when that illusion goes and that you see that you're not that person, and there's a shift, an energetic shift from being limited to being everything, then that person can begin to change more rapidly, and that person can begin to see really quickly, like, negative ideas that body has. So it can change its ideas, its opinions, and because that shift, that energetic shift, brings about a positivity, it can make that person, like, step up into more positive ideas and conditions. So there can be a moving towards that, but not necessarily. You could have somebody that has awakening but still has poor thoughts around money. You see that a lot in spiritual communities. They have very poor thoughts that money is bad, that society is bad, and so obviously they think it's bad, they stay poor, and they stay without money, and they push it away. And it's all thoughts and belief systems, because money in itself is not bad or good. we can look objectively at what this world does, but that doesn't mean that that has to be your belief system or the way that you interact with this world. I'm not saying there isn't corruption and that money hasn't formed from corruption, but if that's the way that you always see things and that's your vibration every time you deal with money, then of course you're going to repel money. So it's looking at it from a different aspect. There are brilliant things to money. The fact that we invented a system that enabled us to not have to just swap products. So I go to somebody and swap my sheep for their bag of rice. Like, we invented a system where it's like IOU. Like, you can have the sheep, and then they give you 5 IOU, and then you can swap the IOUs with somebody else. And that's a really amazing system. Like, it's very complex, and no other animal on Earth has currently done that. I'm sure there's aliens out there that are way more advanced than us, but on Earth, no animal, as to our knowledge, has done that. And it's a very complex system. And yeah, there's negative side of it, but if that's what you always focus on, then that's what you're going to bring. There's also positive sides. So when there's no longer that identification with the person, then the thoughts and the belief systems in this body can rapidly change, because you aren't trying to be an identity anymore. Like, there isn't something inside the body that's trying to be an identity. You just are what you are. So there's just a response happening. So just the unconscious patterning of the body and the ideas that have been inbuilt in the body come out, and that can be changed more rapidly. So if you think this thing's really bad, then you can really investigate that and change that. When you're identified, that identity is always trying to maintain itself. So giving up the idea that money's bad is really painful for that identity, because that's part of who you believe yourself to be, as someone in war against the government, someone in war against money. That's who I am, whereas that's not who you are, and that isn't truth. That's not the way it is. What's truth, what's really happening is what is, and that's the freedom. That recognition. So after awakening and after this energetic shift happens, then there normally is a lot of reconditioning that happens in the body. Like this unconscious thought patterns. It doesn't mean that you're ever going to get to a perfect conditioned body. The body's always going to be conditioned, and there's always going to be ways in which you are, but there is going to be a change in that body. It can happen prior to that shift, that energetic shift as well. Like, a lot of people recondition themselves and train themselves in a more positive light before they've even got into non-duality, or before they've even had awakenings.